Hello everyone, welcome once again to another video in this, the Clown Decade. The decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. However, that is not to say that the tide isn't turning in some respects as we speak. For instance, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, this is a video all about this most holy of months to the woke or the leftists or the new elites or whatever you want to call them. It is the month of Pride. One of the 7 deadly sins in Christianity. In fact, it is the worst deadly sin in Christianity. And so it should be no surprise that a group that is mostly atheist have made it their core belief. We should all believe in pride and allow anyone who is proud of their sexuality to do as they please on the streets. And of course, because it is the most holy of months for the atheists, we of course have to see the pride flags everywhere. Once again, they're on Regent Street. However, this time around, there actually seems to be active dissent with the people putting them up, as shown in this video.
You're taking the wrong f***ing flag down, mate.
I don't know that. Well, you know that.
At least you know that.
100%.
It's very symbolic seeing the Union Jack fall like that to what is essentially an affront to what should be a Christian country. In that, again, it is the most deadly of sin, pride, that we are replacing the Union Jack floor on Regent Street, though. At least I suppose us patriots got our few months with the Queen's funeral and then, of course, the coronation of King Charles III. However, it looks like in general that there is a bit of a pushback against showing your pride when it comes to the main parties, which I have to say is a very welcome addition. So as you can see on screen here, Conservative Party's Twitter page, nothing to do with the LGBT on their front page for Twitter, which usually, obviously, you've got a little pride flag superimposed into the Conservative logo of a tree. And one thing I find even more fascinating is that the Labour Party also don't have anything to do with pride on their Twitter page. In fact, as you can see, they've even got Union Jacks, which I suppose is all down to Keir Starmer really trying his best to make Labour seem like a patriotic party. However, it's not all fun and games. There are still some government Twitter accounts that are showing their pride, and Ministry of Justice is there just as the example. So it looks like pride is not the vote winner that it used to be. And obviously, as we already knew, the working man was already against all of this nonsense. People don't really mind when they see the gays out in public anymore. They don't really care when they see cross-dressers or trans people anymore. They just don't want a whole month dedicated to the whole shebang, because everyone knows that they've already got what they wanted. At this point, the LGBT community and the people that still take it seriously as a political movement are simply on autopilot and just trying to do everything they can to indoctrinate everyone to be, well, I can't think of a better word for it, but completely subservient to their completely inconsistent dogma. And as we've seen over the Clown Decade, this has been working its way into school, but we're not going over the blackpilling, what they are teaching our kids these days. Instead, we are going to listen to some kids fighting back at Rye College in East Sussex. So let's have a listen.
How dare you? You just really upset someone. Saying things like should be in an asylum.
I didn't say that. I just said if they want to identify as a cat or something, then they're like genuinely unwell. Then they've gone they're crazy.
It's incredible, by the way. This is all it's going to take for some kids to do. Some kids in a school just have to say, no, I completely reject this. You can put me in detention, you can suspend me, whatever. I am not going to be fully indoctrinated by this. And because what that's actually going to do is it's going to get teachers involved. Teachers are already involved. Parents involved. And when parents actually look through what they're learning and when they hear, oh, you're forcing my kid to accept that someone identifies as a cat. I think it said cow on the captions, but I'm pretty sure he did say cat. And you're going to put him in trouble for saying that that's an idiotic thing. Yeah, I'm obviously not on your side. I'm going to have to talk to someone who is teaching this stuff and get it off the curriculum. And once you get parents protecting their kids, that is essentially an unstoppable force. And I think this has genuinely been part of the issue. Parents just don't know what their kids are being taught in these classes. I genuinely don't think they do. And part of the reason for that seems to be that the teachers are doing their best to keep the parents out of it all. And once you're doing that, obviously, you're in deep, evil territory. So the kids have got to stand up, and it's good to see that they appear to be standing up here. And it appears to get better.
You were questioning their identity.
I wasn't a question. I was just saying about the gender. I didn't say anything about them.
But where did you get this idea from that there's only two genders?
I just think it's my opinion. That is my opinion. If I respect their opinion, can't they respect my opinion?
Now, the kids are obviously using childlike rhetorical tactics because, well, they're kids and they don't know any better. But when they're saying they didn't say anything about them, I don't think the kids realise, no, you are actually saying something about that person according to this dogma. You're rejecting an assertion on the world around the person who says they identify as a cat in this case, and that goes completely against LGBT doctrine, because obviously, if you're a trans woman, let's say, the most reasonable option, or trans man, whatever, then in the past that just meant I feel more comfortable acting and dressing as a woman, therefore I'm going to do what I can to fit into that gender as much as I can, and other people, you know, it's up to them whether they accept or reject it. I just have to live with that. These days, obviously, bearded man says they're a woman, goes to women's prisons, whatever. Apparently, by law, you can't say anything against it. And then they try and use the tactic of, well, if we're supposed to respect everyone's opinions, why is my opinion not being respected? And the problem here is that it is technically an opinion. Saying the sky is blue is an opinion, and it just happens to be an opinion that's correct. And it's the same thing here. There can only be two genders, because gender is downstream from biology, and in fact has an awful lot to do with your biology. Because some of the gender roles kind of require that you do things that are biologically impossible for the other sex. The main one being the men making the sperm and the women delivering the babies. But of course this teacher isn't having any of this opinion guff, because it's a wrong opinion apparently.
It is not an opinion.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
but
It's not an opinion you can have.
Loads of people think there's only two genders.
There's only a boy and a girl.
Literally. There's no other private part.
And these kids, who I can only assume have very respectable parents who have brought them up right and to be assertive of the correct times, are now going a bit further than just saying it's an opinion and actually just asserting what is true. There can indeed only be two genders because there are only two sexes, and genders are downstream and have an awful lot to do with biological sex.
There's only two.
Gender is not linked to
There
the
is only two
parts that
genders.
you were born with. Gender is about how you identify, which is what I said right from the very beginning of the
No, I
lesson.
just don't agree with that. So why should I have to listen to
Biolo-
that?
I love it, I love it. I mean, I know I would not be like this at all at school. I was not very outspoken like this. But I would definitely be saying something quietly to these kids after they got out of there, saying, yeah, I agree with you, I think it's a bit mad that someone's identifying as a cat. How did it go in there? And then I'd support everything they're saying here, because, yeah, why should you have to listen to a teacher that is teaching you anti-facts and teaching you pure dogma? I did religious studies at school for GCSE, got an A star by the way, just wanted to show that off. And I went to a Catholic school, and even in the religion classes there, it was never really a statement of fact from the teachers. It was just, here is what Christians believe. It was not, this is what is definitely true and you should not dissent against this. And even later, when we were all teenagers, post-GCSEs and all that, there were people that were openly saying they don't believe in God and Jesus to religious teachers. And they just said, oh, that's disappointing. But they would never get in trouble like this. And, you know, Catholicism's supposed to be the proper religion here.
Biological sex, there is actually three biological sexes, because you can be born intersex. You can be born with male and female body parts or hormones.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, there's three. There's not 300.
Doesn't mean
Honestly, considering the things you hear about Zoomers these days, and considering the things I have said in the past about Zoomers, how they don't really know anything that they talk about, and they just want pure-blooded socialism without really knowing what it is. When it comes to the ones that do know what they're talking about, and the ones that are willing to look outside what the education system's telling them, they're pretty good. They're still pretty good at their comebacks. And it would not surprise me if these kids have seen Ben Shapiro in the past, because these are pretty reminiscent of Ben Shapiro tactics. I can imagine if someone was trying to teach Ben Shapiro about biological sex, after all his wife's a doctor, and they said, oh, there are actually three biological sexes, he would come back and say something like this, and I think that's incredible. And I could go into the biology of intersex and all that, but as Jordan Peterson once said at a live lecture that I went to, this covers maybe 1 in 5,000 people, if that. So really, who the hell cares? Statistically, these people don't matter, and from all the people who actually are intersex, a lot of them do tend to just fit in with one gender or the other as best they can, and they do a pretty good job at it. The LGBT stuff goes far beyond that, as this teacher is fully demonstrating. Carry on, kids.
Yeah, there's three. I'm talking about biological sex. In terms of gender, there are lots of genders. There is transgender, there is agender, people that don't believe they have a gender at all.
Yeah, but you can't have that. You
can't have that. It's not a law.
Yeah, but it's not a law, but it's our opinion. We just don't agree with it. We just think it's all just...
If you have a vagina, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy.
Yeah.
I love it. I really do love it. It's just a full-on, no, just not having any of this nonsense that you're coming up with. And the thing is, if you really push these kids on it, they would probably accept that if a trans person was really trying their best to pass as the opposite sex, then yeah, you'd probably respect their pronouns maybe, you'd treat them with respect and all that, but it's the fact that, obviously, with the things that we've all seen from these LGBT curriculums, they're obviously just nonsense, and they'll say that a bearded, shoulders broader than a barge male figure who wears a tutu is a woman. You're obviously going to reject the thing wholesale, and I don't particularly blame you. I mean, you see the memes in TV shows all the time of evangelical Christians saying the most outlandish things about Christianity that just makes you want to reject it wholesale. But the thing is that the LGBT curriculum is that, but unironically.
But cisgender is not necessarily the way to be. You are talking about the fact that cisgender is the norm, that you identify with the gender of the sexual order that you're born with, or you're weird. That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
These kids have good pattern recognition, I have to say. I just can't believe she's in disbelief at these kids. Kids, do you seriously think that it's the norm to identify as the gender that aligns with your sex? Well, yeah, you idiot. That's why when you typically think of a man, they have a penis, and when you typically think of a woman, they have a vagina. And that is why, as well, most trans people try and get surgery to have the genitals look different to the opposite sex.
Which is really despicable.
This is a Church of England school, by the way, so I am not surprised at all by this. Because given that belief in God appears to be optional for the Church of England, it is no surprise to me that they are instead believing in all of this nonsense instead, and worshipping pride. But to call these kids despicable for arguing their case about as well as she is, yeah, I'm not going to call them despicable. In fact, I'm going to call you despicable for trying to indoctrinate these kids into nothing but pure falsehoods.
How? When it's
If I
literally
called
true.
my mum right now, my mum would
Same.
be on my side.
If I called my mum, she'd say.
Well, that's very sad as well then.
How is it?
Loads of people agree with that. There's only a small majority of people who actually think that.
And why do you think we have so many problems in the world with homophobia?
Oh my god, I absolutely love it. Yes, I'm sure that we have homophobia all over the world because we're not accepting that a child identifies as a cat. I'm sure that's what caused homophobia. It's absolutely incredible, but obviously it's really stupid because none of this has been about sexual preferences, as the kids point out.
Yeah, but
Because
that's
the
not
people
homophobia,
expressing-
that's gender.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
it
fine with
is.
lesbians and gay people.
Same.
I've got nothing against them.
Yeah, same.
But gender is, there is a link between it, and you're
How?
saying that people
There
can't
isn't.
change
No, they
who they want
can't.
to be.
And the whole point of homophobia is that people don't believe that they're born gay and lesbian and that they can actually change who they are about themselves. That's the whole point of homophobia. Transphobia is actually the opposite. This teacher's screwed up, and I don't know how she's screwed up. She's supposed to be teaching these kids, and even I know the dogma better than her. But I do love how she is saying that it's really sad that the parents don't believe in this dogma, and the kids are absolutely right. It's a very small amount of people that actually believe in the dogma. It's just unfortunate that they're all part of the new elite, as Matt Goodwin says. They're all the people in the universities, the managerial positions. A lot of them are in government as well. They don't come out their bubble too often, and then when they do, like this teacher has with these kids, they're stuck. They don't know what to do with themselves. And it's really funny to listen to.
They can't. Unless you
You're
get a
so
penis
wrong.
attached. No, I'm not.
You're confusing sex and gender.
No, I'm not though. Because
Yes,
if you have a
you are.
vagina, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy.
Yeah, you can't have a vagina and be a girl. But then
Gender-
Stand your ground, kids. I fully appreciate it. Put this teacher in her place, because clearly she is a moron. And I have no idea what classes she is teaching, but she clearly shouldn't be teaching this, because not only is she getting a lot of the details of the dogma wrong, but the dogma is evil. And telling kids that they're homophobic because they're not going to go along with the delusion that you're a man if you've got a vagina, but say you're a man, or you're a cat just because you say you're a cat, yeah, that is an evil thing to say to the kids, quite frankly.
No,
Gender
because
is
you've got
about
those genes.
how you identity.
I
how you identify.
Yeah, just
But it's
fine.
not an opinion that
Yes,
we
it is.
express in this
Yes,
school.
it is.
No, it's not. And if you don't like it, you need to go to a different school. So
I did go to a
I'm
different
reporting
school.
you to Miss Willis. You need to have a proper educational conversation about equality, diversity, and
I ain't doing
inclusion.
it.
Boom, there it is. This is nothing to do with education. This is nothing to do with about teaching kids facts or the way the world works. This is nothing more than giving them religious dogma and making sure they swallow it whole. I have no idea what incentives this teacher has to make sure that the kids are swallowing the dogma whole, but if it's anything to do with the school and the curriculum and basically they're being tested on how many of the kids accept all this, and the more the kids accept it, the better Ofcom score they get, for instance, then obviously that has to change. But if this is just because the teacher is insane, then maybe have us sectioned.
Because I'm not having that expressed in my lesson. When I'm teaching you about you can be who you want to be,
Everyone else
how
thinks
you
it.
identify is up to
So
you.
everyone else thinks it. They just don't say it because then all
Yeah.
this happens.
Maybe because they're polite and maybe they're sensitive.
Maybe because they're polite and because they're sensitive. I mean, if we're going to actively not allow people to speak the truth, because, I mean, if we're actively not going to do that, we've been doing that for years. People cannot point out obvious problems and issues that they're having because they want to be polite and sensitive. I mean, for God's sake, after that student was killed in Nottingham, less than a week later his mother came out saying, don't want any of the far right using this to push their agenda because it's not polite and you need to be more sensitive. Like, your kids just died. Don't be making public statements like that. It's disgusting.
I haven't said anything in all of the lessons I've been in. It's just because they turned around and started saying something. So I said, how can you identify as a cat when you're a girl?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they're now writing a statement. I would imagine that you'll be asked to write a statement as well.
We will.
Yeah, we will.
So yes, it appears that this whole situation came about because they're in these lessons, they were just listening to it and more than likely just ignoring it, doing the work. You know, you're at school, you do what you got to do to not cause too much trouble, just get your work done, whatever. And then it appears that one girl has taken this massively on board, realised she can identify as whatever she wants, and possibly even as a joke said, yeah, I identify as a cat. And then obviously these girls have said, no, you're a girl, you can't, like, let alone identify as another gender. You can't obviously identify as another species, and it's led to all this. And they've been called despicable for it, which is insane. And naturally, because this was such an insane conversation, the newspapers around the UK have asked comments from people involved. So the parents of the pupil who took the recording expressed fury online and thanked those who have been kind and supportive to her daughter. Absolutely right, she deserves all the support she can muster. A parent of another Year 8 pupil at the school who had received the same lesson told the Telegraph, I understand the point the teacher was attempting to make. What bothers me is shutting down of debate in such a threatening and aggressive manner, which I don't believe is appropriate in an educational setting. Regardless of the subject, education should serve to build awareness of differing viewpoints, to widen the understanding of a subject, and shouldn't be the case of indoctrination. I completely agree with that, and the thing is when they say, oh, we need to build awareness of differing viewpoints, when it comes to schools, the problem with that is that they are all very, very heavily slanted to the left wing. And this has been a problem with schools for absolutely ages. You hear stories all the time. I remember during the Brexit referendum, there were even kids who came back with homework where they had to write an essay on why immigration was good and nothing about why it can be bad. And these were like 11-year-old kids. And I know parents that complained about that, and basically nothing was changed at the school. They had to complete the work, and the indoctrination continued slightly. So it's good to see that there's been some pushback in this area. The Church of England Trust, that manages the school along with others in East Sussex, Kent and South East London, reportedly told its teachers earlier this year to re-educate those using negative language such as "that is mental" and "stop acting like a girl." I mean, that is mental, and I do think this trust needs to stop acting like a bunch of girls. A spokesman for Rye College said, we are committed to offering our pupils an inclusive education. Teachers endeavour to ensure that pupils' views are listened to and encourage them to ask questions and engage in discussion. Teachers also aim to answer questions sensitively and honestly. Well, that was a freaking lie. We strive to uphold the highest standards across the school. We will be reviewing our processes and working with relevant individuals to ensure such events do not take place in the future. Which avoids the whole point of this, which is LGBT education in schools seems to have gone way too far, and it's obviously way further in America. But that should surely be the warning sign here to kind of check where we're up to now, because clearly it is going too far in some ways, where it's got to the point where a girl identifying as a cat is taken infinitely more seriously than a bunch of girls who put forward the standard opinion of, if you've got a penis, you're a man. And I realise at this point that a lot of Americans in my audience will be wondering, how old is year 8? Well, year 8 is about 12 to 13-year-old pupils, so even then I think that is still slightly too young for sex education, but here we are. They probably learned it when they were 6. Anyway, moving from schools back to politics, here's a quick secret recording of something Rishi Sunak said.
At the same period of time over the period, you may have noticed Ed Davey has been very busy. Like me, you were probably seeing that he was busy trying to convince everybody that women clearly had penises. And I was reflecting, you all know I am a big fan of everybody studying maths to 18. But it turns out that we need to focus on biology to 18.
And oh my god, the reaction of that was completely predictable. So predictable, in fact, I'm going to save the time of not going through it at all, because it's all so blinkingly obvious at this point. So I'm just going to show you the white pill that, yes, thank God our Prime Minister clearly thinks that women don't have penises. I know it's an incredibly low bar, but my god, we've got to take what we can get. And luckily it's not the only white pill from Rishi Sunak this week. Schools to be banned from letting pupils change gender if their parents oppose it in new guidance from Rishi Sunak. This is very good news. Schools will be banned from letting kids change their gender if their parents say no, the Sun can reveal. And children who want to be called by another pronoun, he, she, they, will not be able to take part in competitive sport under new government guidance to be published this week. Sounds like good news to me. Once again, we've been hearing from America, where allowing men to, or especially older teenage boys, to compete with girls does not help with the competitiveness of the various sports there. The Prime Minister has also expressed huge concerns over the content of sex education being taught to some pupils, where teachers are refusing to hand over the curriculum to worried parents. In a move which will be seen as the PM taking on militant trans campaigners, teachers will be forced to tell parents if their child is questioning their gender, even if the child objects. The new guidance is set to spark a fiery backlash from the trans lobby and other campaigners, who will argue it is up to the children themselves to tell their parents if they want to change gender. Well, I mean, that's just ridiculous. When a child gets detention, say, the parent has to know. That the parent has a right to know absolutely everything that the child is up to when they're at school. It's up to the parents to know what the school is teaching their kids and that the school isn't doing anything to abuse their child, essentially, just as it's the school's responsibility to not keep anything from the parent and keep them updated on how the child's doing. It's perfectly reasonable, this, so let there be a fiery backlash. They've got to be backlashy about absolutely everything anyway. Who cares? Just let them scream. Anyway, final bit of news, and the part that really makes my heart warm for the British people. Wickes boss sparks fury as he says bigoted shoppers concerned about trans rights not welcome in stores. For those of you again in America who don't know, Wickes is just a hardware store. So why it's trying to tell its customers how they should think is beyond me. Wickes' chief operating officer has sparked a furious social media debate after branding gender-critical shoppers bigots who are not welcome in our stores. Fraser Longdon, the firm's chief operating officer, attended an online event hosted by Pink News on trans rights yesterday. Well, that was his first mistake. Longdon said, "I don't think I'm ever going to change some of the bigots out there's minds. I'm never going to win that argument with them. So we're doing it to show support to the community." When asked about the potential boycott, he added, "The other 10%, they're just hot air, and they will go and buy a tin of paint in the nearest place to them. That might have been us before, that might not be us afterwards, and equally, they do come in and buy tins of paint and behave that way. They're not welcome in our stores anyway." That was all just nonsense. What was he even saying there? He's basically just had an F the customers moment, which is a really poor decision to make. And I mean, typically, if you're harassing other customers anyway, you are told to leave anyway. I don't understand this. Why, if the policy is if customers are harassing each other, they get kicked out? Did you have to say, well, if you don't think that trans women should be in women's bathrooms, you're not allowed in the store? Like, what was the point of this? I know what the point of this was. This was to show your colours on Pink News and say, yeah, we're on your side. Well, it might have just cost you a load of money, which is not the ideal business practice. Wickes has adapted its social media accounts in tribute to Pride Month, as most companies do, making its logo represent the rainbow colours associated with the LGBT flag. The company also attended Brighton Pride last year, and Wickes brought along a large sign which said, "No LGB without the T." People go to this shop to buy nails. I can make a really edgy joke about trans people and suicide, but I'm pretty sure you can all work that joke out for yourself. Something along the lines of they notice a lot of customers don't return after buying a length of rope, you know, something like that. Anyway, naturally Wickes faced a boycott about this because it was a ridiculous thing to say. As hashtag boycott Wickes started trending online among those who disagreed with the company's stance, as campaigners for LGBT Alliance hit out at the retailer, accusing it of discriminating against lesbian, gay and bisexual people. I don't know why it's just discriminating against them in their mind, because they're also discriminating against normal people like me, who simply don't go along with the LGBT dogma. Tweets poured in from previous customers of the store, professing they would never shop there again. Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis hit out at Mr. Longdon's comments, as she wrote, "So Wickes thinks anyone in the UK that thinks biological females deserve fair and safe sport is a bigot. That's an awful lot of mums, dads, grandparents, brothers and of course females who will be taking their bigoted business elsewhere." James SS, a former child therapist student who reportedly expelled from his university degree for his gender-critical views, also said, "These offensive, divisive and discriminatory remarks are an absolute outrage." Elon Musk weighed in on the former student's comments, and he replied with an enthusiastic double exclamation mark, as if he just made a brilliant move on chess. But yes, I've also known people who are actively not going to Wickes anymore simply because they don't feel welcome, as the chief operating officer decided to let people who aren't welcome there know. Anyway, as you can see from the past week of Wickes stocks, you could tell exactly when this statement was made because there is a cliff drop right on the 16th of June. Of course it recovers over time, as all these things do, but I mean, we have to look at the long term of this. You have the initial reaction, then it tends to recover, and then if the boycott's successful, you will see it trailing off in the future until they essentially fire the guy. So we just have to be patient and hope that the people of Britain really do boycott people who don't deserve their money. Anyway, I hope that's a little nice white pill video for you all. We appear to be seeing the start of some crumblings when it comes to LGBT alliances, and obviously a complete rejection of it by a lot of other people, but of course it's the clown decade. They're going to notice this. They're going to push even harder against things like Rishi Sunak stopping kids being able to hide from their parents that they're changing gender, and push for even further indoctrination of the kids in schools, and push harder to get their flag represented absolutely everywhere in life, because they hate everything apart from their new religion. So you may see a worse Pride Month next year here in Britain, but hey, I'll still be keeping a record of all this stuff, so we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, take the white pills where you can. Leave this video feeling slightly happier about yourself and the state of Britain. And in America, over there, just feel better that we might be doing slightly better than you on some fronts, you know. There's friendly competition here. Anyway, that's everything I had for you all today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.